Welcome to the locker room. I am joined by my good friend Flying Fluffy Hockey. How are you doing, my friend?
Well, apparently, according to all of the media, we're fixing to roll Bruins over in 4 games. That's what everybody tells
Listen,
me.
listen, listen. You don't have to start out the show with such anger and such evil wording, right? Listen, this is.
Hey, I don't believe it either, man. I don't know what they're watching. It's like, I get that the Panthers have looked good. I get that since Game 4, after Game 4 against the Bruins last year, I think we're something like 15-2 on our last 17
Yeah.
playoff games in the Eastern Conference. I grasp that, but it's the second round of the playoffs, and now Bruins had the huge monkey off their back. I mean, that was a big ass monkey.
Yeah.
Okay,
That,
that was a big monkey,
yeah.
and you almost let the monkey hump you, but
Uh,
instead he's off your back and.
I thought for sure. I'd be honest with you. I was very angry after Game 6, and I had a video where I said the Bruins are trash. I was very angry because I'm like, not again. Verhaeghe
Yeah.
did it to me last year. Not again. And but I think so. Let's talk about the Panthers. I've covered the Panthers quite a bit on my channel, and it's kind of after they eliminated my Bruins, as you know. I spoke very highly of that team because I feel like since that first round, and yeah, they lost in the finals, which I think could have gone different if Tkachuk stayed healthy. If they've been playing at such an elite level, and it's not to say that they haven't had regular season success before, but this version of the Panthers, like this, the one that has a lot more confidence in these big pressure moments, I feel way more confident about. I feel that they can do some special things, and while they have some interesting contract things coming up, I think they're going to be a contender in the Eastern Conference for a while, especially with the amount of talent you guys have up and down the lineup. You took care of business in Tampa, and outside of what maybe a game where it was kind of a bad performance, which you shouldn't shock, right? Tampa's not going to just sit there and
Yeah.
get swept. You guys were the far more dominant team against Tampa. Like it was not even close, in my opinion. Really.
Right.
Um,
Um, the whole thing from the beginning to now, the way that things have fallen into place, you couldn't write it.
mm,
I mean, we've got the perfect coach in Maurice, but when you back that up just a half a second, we don't get Maurice if the whole thing with Chicago and Quenville doesn't go
yeah,
down,
that's
right?
yeah,
And then we've got the perfect guy to change the culture in Kachuk, but I mean, he had to want out of Calgary, and Calgary had to be like, okay, we'll let you go. And then we had to have the assets
yeah,
to give the right assets, the assets that we could afford to give to get a guy. I mean, it's a 2 in a million shot.
yeah,
You can't look at what the Panthers have done and be like, that's how you build a team, because you just can't
yeah.
you just can't go off the street and just be like, oh, I'll get another Matthew Kachuk. There's not a lot of those guys around.
Well, it's definitely if I'm the Flames, I'm like punching myself continuously in the face because you traded. And Uyghur's been good for them, right? But
Right.
let's just call it what it is. That was a terrible trade. Like looking it back, and even at the time, I was like, yeah, I mean, Kachuk's the far best player in this deal. Huberdeau kind of had that 1 year. I was like, I don't think this will age well. I didn't think it would age this badly though,
Right.
because
Um, Panther fans kind of, I mean, look, we woke up and it's like, whoa, they did it, right?
mm,
But those of us who had kind of watched like every game of Huberdeau's career, we kind of knew. We had already been kind of like the Leafs are at the point now where they're like, I don't think these are the guys, and they've been saying it for a few years.
mm,
We kind of knew that it's like, man, we love these guys, but I'm not so sure if Barkov and Huberdeau. I don't know if that's we need something else.
yeah,
And when I saw what Calgary's management and everything in the fan base, when I saw what they were saying that Huberdeau was going to be, I was like,
no,
you guys are in for, because this is not Huberdeau.
no,
He's going to be what he is, and if you put him in the right position, he's a damn good hockey player. but they were counting on him to be like what Tkachuk is to the Panthers. Like he's the guy that's going to come in and do it, and he was never that player.
No, he was more of a complimentary piece. When you watch the Panthers, you could kind of tell. Like if you watched a lot of their games, and that's not an knock to him. Like you said, right players around him, he can be really good. But I mean, I feel overall it's been a fantastic trade, and the Panthers have kept up their good momentum since that playoff run last year, and continue to be one of the best teams in the NHL. In comparison with the Bruins, they could have finished first in the Atlantic, which I was surprised going into it. My preseason prediction for them was like, maybe a wild card team at best because you lost your two top centers and you have holes in your lineup. Right. And, for me as a Bruins fan, like looking at it, Charlie Coyle has completely exceeded my expectations. Do I think he's a number one center? No. I think he could be a second line center, which I never thought he could be. I think the Bruins do lack that. But after that, Game 7, after that 3-1 collapse against the Panthers, this year, I thought this was going to be kind of a rebuild year, right? Where it's like, maybe you're a playoff team, maybe not. It is what it is in that point. You have some guys that are unproven. They go into the series against Toronto. They go up 3-1, and then you start to see shades of last season. They end up pulling it out in Game 7. But for me, I have a completely different perspective of the Bruins, or I would say expectations this year. Last year, I'm expecting them to win a cup. This year, I'm just content they're there because I understand that the roster they have.
Well, when you get these teams that have had success before, not necessarily have to win a cup, but when you get a certain group of guys together and they've had success, it's hard for them to not make the playoffs.
True.
Tampa, Washington, the Islanders. I mean, it has taken everything the Penguins have had in them to not make the playoffs the last 2 years. So on one hand, you guys lost some guys, but I keep reminding everybody, you guys were beating the crap out of us before Bergeron came back. I know that's hard to hear as a Bruins fan because you don't want to think about it, but all players reach that point where at some point it's like, I like the name on the back of the jersey, but that ain't the dude that used to fill that jersey.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead.
I think with Bergeron, I think the problem is because at the end of the season they kept him in, he wanted to play, but he had like a bulging disc in his neck. I don't think he was ever right. He was never right in that playoff series. You could tell he was skating weird, and I think that's the main part he retired because he kept getting injured because of the style in which he plays the game.
Right.
But I would agree. I mean, Bergeron coming back into the lineup, and that's no disrespect when I say that, just due to him not really being the same guy with the injury. It did affect. It affected how the Bruins played that series. Not to take anything away from the Panthers, they were really good.
No, look, I mean that was. Again, I mean, that, like I talked about the things that had to happen for us to be the things that had to happen in that series.
Yeah.
The Game 5 Marchand breakaway. I mean, I tell people, I'm like, the Bruins won that series. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, go back and watch overtime before Verhaeghe scored. I think it was Pasta. The shot goes off the knob of Bob's stick. Bob never even saw the shot. And the shot was going right into the net. And it goes off the knob of his stick and hits it at just the perfect angle to where instead of it just like flicking the stick and going in, it goes out. And Verhaeghe scored a couple minutes later. I mean, if that shot is 1/1,000,000th of a millimeter different, Bruins win that series, and all of history in the NHL is completely different.
Yeah.
That's how close it is.
Yeah, we would go to the finals and then get stomped by Vegas, But
fun with that.
And they got slayed by Dallas last night, so they killed the big old witch. So going into this series, what is your expectations as a Florida fan? Like, what is your predict? I'm assuming you're going to pick Florida, but like, how many games and what do you think is going to be the big, I would say, difference? Who's going to be your main cog here to kind of take you over the top and just be too much for the Bruins?
The entire team is one. Kind of the same thing I said against the Lightning. And you'll notice, I mean, not a lot of people can notice this because we have this dirty, scrappy reputation, but we really haven't been doing that as nearly as much this season.
Yeah.
Maurice came out in the preseason and basically, in a nutshell, said we're going to skate teams to death. we're going to be the most conditioned and we're going to skate teams to death. And we just keep coming at you and coming at you and coming at you and wearing you down.
Yeah.
And wherever it meets that the Panthers are no longer rusty from being absent for a week, and where the Bruins' legs start to get a little wobbly from playing every other night, and this series is still every other night. It's just going on. Wherever that meets, if the Panthers play their game, there's going to be a moment where the Bruins are just not going to be able to keep up. Now, when that happens, I don't know, right?
Right.
I don't, anything could happen in game one. The way I laid it out in my series preview was I kind of figured Florida was split at home, split in Boston, and then wear them down and win games 5 and game 6. But when I say win, I ain't talking about like winning 6-2.
Right.
You know what I mean? I hate to tell you guys this, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's another Verhaeghe in overtime moment at some point in this series. You know what I mean?
I think for me, looking at this series, I want to say this first off. I want the Bruins to win. And I think some people get that twisted because when you give an unbiased and you kind of try to take a step back, they think, oh, you're just not a fan of that team. Like, no, I hope I'm incorrect. Florida is a far better team than Boston, completely up and down the lineup. I'd take their forward core. I would even take their D core. The goaltending, Bob has shown me, and Swayman did fantastic, so hopefully he keeps that up. But Bob has shown me he has the ability to, boom, flip a switch and then become a brick wall. And I mean, even in the last series, like he had a sub 900 save percentage. But if you watch the games, I still felt like there was those moments in those, even a few of those games, like isolated, that he played well.
Basically he had 4 Vezina caliber games and one game where it was just redonkulously bad.
Yeah, so it was like, I'm not really worried. If you look at the numbers, like, oh, wow, he's not having a great postseason. I'm like, no, if you watch the games, I mean, that guy, the insane behind the back arm save was, I'm like, what am I watching? Yeah. I think up and down the lineup, they're just a superior team. I mean, you have Verhaeghe and Tkachuk with 9 points, so you have your leaders. Barkov, 5 points in 5 games. Barkov is a great two-way center who should win the Selke. He should win the Selke this year. And Reinhart, if healthy, is he going to be healthy for game 1?
Everybody's good, but Bennett's out for 1 and probably 2.
Okay, so Bennett, I thought Reinhart got dinged, and maybe I knew Bennett was out. But okay, so Reinhart's healthy. Bennett might be out. But for me, I just think, when I look at the top stars of the Panthers, like the guys in their prime, like Barkov, Tkachuk, Verhaeghe, the Bruins don't really have anyone on the other side. And you could say David Pastrnak, but he got that overtime winner. But in that Maple Leaf series, he was not that good. He was not that good. And I think teams are starting to key in. Like, if you play him a little bit more physically, if you kind of put him off to the side and make him a one-trick pony, you can force him to make mistakes. And with how good the Panthers are just overall in their defense, whether that be their neutral zone play, their defensive zone play, even their breakouts, I don't think the Bruins have enough to beat them unless Swayman channels what he did against the Maple Leafs again.
And so first of all, I know it just got dark in here. I have migraines, so I keep my lighting really low and it got cloudy.
Yeah.
So, but the Bruins, and I don't want to really give the Bruins advice, but they're not watching anyway. They don't need to worry about winning this series. Can they steal a game? And then can they steal another game? Because is there one game that Swayman can steal? Is there a game where the Panthers really don't got it and the Bruins step it up? Now that's 2 games.
Yeah.
You're halfway there. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So, good teams lose all the time, right? Good teams lose all the time. I mean, the Leafs beat the Lightning last year. You know what I mean? I think, like I said, for the Panthers, one split and win the last 2. But Swayman is part of the key there. Absolutely. I mean, he was damn good.
Yeah.
He's been damn good. I'm going to assume they're going to stick with him. And I know they've been doing this whole, we've got the 2 guys in the rotation thing, but I'm going to tell you right now, if we hear ullmark is starting, there will be smiles in Pantherland, most likely. So yeah, I mean, Swayman, he's been well, he's been good. And I'm going to assume that they're going to play Swayman because if the Panther fans here, they're going to play ullmark, we're going to have memories of last year in Game 7.
Right.
Yeah, right.
No,
And
I agree. I think Swayman's going to be the guy that starts out. Where
right.
this is the thing, though. Historically, I made a video on the channel. Swayman has really bad numbers against the Panthers, and it's a smaller sample size, but it's not good. It's a sub 900 save percentage. Whereas in comparison to Ullmark, especially last year or this year, he had a 947 save percentage against all the games he played against the Panthers. And historically, he has like a 920 something, 924 save percentage against Florida.
Right.
He
Right.
plays the Panthers well. I mean, outside of getting hurt last year, I think that would have been a continued trend. But after Game 4, where he tweaked something and Montgomery didn't switch to
Yeah.
Swayman, which was a
Yeah. Yeah.
massive
Yeah.
mistake,
Yeah.
it just kind of like it showcased like, oh wow, maybe he can't handle it. But I think they'll go with Swayman because he's playing so hot. But the Bruins do have the benefit of like, okay, if Swayman does struggle for whatever reason,
Right.
we have a guy in Olmark that has been very successful against the Panthers.
Right, right. And look, I know I don't know if you're going to bring this up or not because I know there's a lot of talk about how the Panthers haven't beaten the Bruins this year.
Oh, that does not matter. That doesn't.
Yeah,
That does not
yeah,
matter at all. And
yeah,
not to cut you off. That is, you beat them in a regular season where the Bruins were treating that like their Stanley Cup for revenge last season. If you look up and down the lineup, it's regular season matchups matter somewhat, I guess, if you want to really kind of go into the underlying numbers and maybe the system they're playing. But I don't think there was a lot of reasons why the Bruins won those games. I think it's going to be completely different in this postseason.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We agree there. But look, I'm not. I mean, I'm not worried, but I'm going to be sweating. You know what I mean? It's weird as a Panther fan watching the ESPN and NHL Network and this creator and that one. And they're all like, yeah, the Panthers are going to roll them. Yeah, the Panthers are going to, Panthers in 4, Panthers in 5. And I'm like, I mean, I love my team. Ain't nobody that watches the team closer than I do. And I'm like, I mean, maybe I'm spoiled. I don't know. Maybe I'm spoiled. I mean, I know occasionally I watch some of the Western Conference teams. I'm like, damn, these guys don't play any defense. But look,
True.
Boston's not a bad team, and this is the playoffs. Six. Now, look, it could go to 7 if Swayman decides to steal something. But I think the biggest thing is, especially if we get Bennett back. Now, in the first couple of games, you're going to have Lundell up there at 2C. And we're rolling the same lines that we rolled towards the end of that Tampa series. Now, when Tampa got physical with Lundell, his production it wasn't the same. He's an exceptional defensive center.
Yeah.
He's got extreme playmaking ability. He's not going to score you a lot of goals. But if we can win one out of the first 2, win the first 2 games, if we win before Bennett comes back, when Bennett comes back, now you're talking about that third line, the advantage we have, a Lundell, Luosterainen,
Yeah.
and depending on who we want to put. I mean, we can either have Lundell, Luosterainen, Tarasenko, or Lundell, Luosterainen, Reinhart, and that's our third line.
Yeah.
So, and we can which one you want to put in, and that's hard for other teams to match up against when you got that level of not just the scoring ability, but when we can put them out there 15, 18 nights, 18 minutes a night, and they're not going to allow, they're defensively, they're top notch.
Right.
So that's what makes it tough when I say we're going to skate teams to death. It's just, we just keep rolling the lines, and everybody has played with everything. This is the other thing. Because of the injuries, and Bennett has been out, and Reinhart and Barkov get sick every year, and this, that, and the other thing. Everybody's played with everybody.
Right.
So there's some nights we're watching the third period, and we're like, what are lines? It's just like when one guy gets tired, one guy comes, and it's just like there's no lines.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter because everybody's played with everybody, and that's what happens when you keep the team together. And I think that some of it, that's why Boston's had success, because like I said, when you keep a certain core group of guys together, it's hard for them to not be good.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree. I think that's definitely a favor in Florida's advantage is that they have a lot of guys been there for a bit, built up chemistry, and you can tell because they're very interchangeable up and down the lineup. When
Yeah.
you guys have to shuffle lines in comparison to other teams, it's less noticeable.
We've got, I mean, the whole team is a center.
Yeah.
I mean, what we have at the center of depth, every line has two legitimate options as that. I mean, Reinhart's a center.
Yeah.
So you got Barkov and Reinhart. That's two centers. You know, Bennett. Now, Bennett Verhage is not really a center. He was actually listed as a center at some point and earlier in his career. He was actually listed as a C. But Lundell, Luosterainen, they're centers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you can, like you're saying, we can move guys in and out all over the place, and it's enjoyable as hell. That's all I can say is that I'm enjoying this moment right now because, like you said, salary cap issue and everything like that. I mean, eventually we're not going to be able to keep everybody.
No.
You know.
No, but I'll say this. So you're thinking Panthers in 6.
I mean, if you were giving me $100 to bet, I would put Panthers in 6. Yeah.
So listen, I'll say this. I think the Bruins have depth. The problem is they have too much third line depth, if that makes sense. I feel like they have a lot of players that would be third liners on other teams. So you'll have that conversation. I think the Bruins can keep it within striking distance in these games. I'm hoping there's no blowouts. But, the decor, I think Mason Lohrei, he's been great in his rookie year. We were not expecting him to be at the NHL level, and he's looked good. I mean, he made a couple nice moves against the Maple Leafs. Like, oh, this kid's feeling himself. Like, okay. And then you got Witherspoon, also a kid from the AHL, Providence Bruins, kind of a guy that had to be forced into this role. Shattenkirk, we got at a cheap deal. I mean, Carlo's been great in the playoffs when he's healthy. McAvoy, he's been overall solid, but game 7 not so much. Hampus Lindholm that was his best game in game 7.
Nice pass.
Yeah, that was a nice pass. That was that.
And the game was over so quick, bro.
Yeah,
it was like, oh, it's a dumping. Oh shit. Oh, that's it.
No, that was a beat.
Before you figured out that it was done. It was over. It was crazy.
That's a set play. If you're gonna, that's a set play we used to do in high school. That's the funny part. Like that. Right. So I was watching that. I'm like, no way. Because I was like, no way. Because everyone does that play, but it was like, no way that just went perfectly to his stick. I'm like, wow, and it's over.
I mean, he didn't have to break stride.
Anything.
It was legit perfect.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah, you can't even get mad. As a Leaf fan, obviously, but still, if that's what it takes to beat you, it's like, well. It's like Bob's save, right? The backwards save is like, well, that's okay. We're going home. I mean, forget it. Why even play if that's not a goal? Come on. If
that was a video game, I throw the controller through the window. I just
yeah.
But the Bruins, I think their decor is steady, but I think they're a couple of years away. Like if this was Lohrei 2 to 3 more years in his development, I feel even more confident about it. But he's a rookie, so he's going to look good some games, kind of not as much others. And then when you get to the goaltending, Swayman, I think he's a younger guy. He's been playing fantastic. I'd say the Bruins have the edge in that regard, but I'll be honest, with how much talent up and down the lineup, Barkov, Verhage, Tkachuk, Reinhart, Bennett when he gets back. I mean, on the back end, Forsling, Ekblad, Nicola, Montour. And then Bob.
OEL's on our bottom pair.
Exactly. And he's revived his career nicely in Florida.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers 1-5. And I think I want to say 6, and this might irk Bruins fans when I say this, but when I'm just looking at the lineup, I'm looking at the situation. This Panthers team is just so good. I would not be surprised if the Panthers win in 5 just because of the lack of center depth the Bruins had, because Coyle and Zacha did struggle on the dot last series. And defensively, if you struggle to score against the Maple Leafs, have fun trying to score against the Florida Panthers, because it's like, it's like going from elementary to college level like a college level PhD doctorate degree type thing. Because to me, the Panthers overall decor style of play are so much better than the Maple Leafs. And that was the one thing coming out of this series. I thought whoever played the Panthers were going to have a hard time. Yeah, that's why for me, I'm picking the Panthers. I'm going to say 6, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's 5.
Right. Now you bring up a couple points. The dot, the face-offs. Yeah, if you guys are losing defensive zone draws, that's going to be a problem for you, because That's how we eat. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We will come in, and if there's not a shot, if there's nothing doing, we'll just send it on net just to get the face off, and that's a reset for us. That's a bonus for us.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's why we end up, you'll see the Panthers, they had 45 shots and only got 3 goals as well because, 10 of those shots were garbage shots just so we can get a face-off in the zone.
Yeah.
We'll do that. So, yeah, face-offs, that's definitely something. Lundell has gotten better, at that. So, I know he's technically our 3C, but he covers all the bases that you need out of your 2C. He's just not a crazy maniac like Sam Bennett.
Yeah.
Like on most any other team, Lundell would be fine at 2C, but because we got Bennett, it's like, well, I guess you're a 3C kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You always need a crazy bearded man like that, though.
Yeah. He's a maniac. Let me tell you. He don't fight a lot, but I don't suspect he'll be fighting now though, because it's his hand that's the issue.
Yeah.
And look, last thing I'll say here, we have a tremendous amount. Yeah, you look at the lines like Barkov, Verhaeghe, Reinhart, Tarasenko, blah blah blah. It just goes on and on and on.
Tarasenko, I forgot to mention him too.
Yeah. It's like whoopsies, right? Tarasenko, right? Yeah, but we don't use them like a running gun team. We don't go out trying to beat you 6-2. We're going to try to beat you 2-1. I mean, Paul Maurice, that is the Paul Maurice dream.
Yeah.
So, we've got all those guys, but 85% of the time they're focused on playing defense. And if the other team makes a mistake, we get an opportunity, then we're going to go on the rush. But even half the time we go on a rush, our rush is dump it in, let somebody go win a board battle, center the puck, and Verhaeghe in overtime.
Yeah.
Now, how that goal scored. So while the names look like these guys should be scoring like 8 goals a game, we don't use the personnel in that way. Tkachuk talked about it this year, how he worked, to improve his defense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Lundell, as a rookie, had 18 goals in the President's Trophy season. Now he's only had 12 and 13 with Maurice, not because he got worse, because his job is go out there and don't let the other team score.
Yeah.
And, Forsling has led the league in plus minus. And he don't have a lot of goals. It's not like he's got, 65, 70 points. It's just because when Forsling and Barkov are on the ice, good luck. Because that's our focus.
Forsling is one of the more underappreciated defensemen in the league. I think if he played in a different market, he'd have a far bigger name. I do. Sure. I like Forsling's game a lot. But no, I think you're right. They just play a system. I mean, you watch them every day, so obviously you're right. But they play a system that they're more defensive, and but that can also be even more difficult for the Bruins because you go from a team in the Leafs that can give you those pretty bad defensive lapses at times to a team with the Panthers where that really just doesn't happen. And without
man, if the game is tied, we feel like we're ahead because for us. We're like, we'll beat your ass all 60 minutes. It's 1-1. And when we get to overtime, we're going to turn it on. And it's not 100%, but that's how we feel. We feel like a tie is, all right, we'll just get to overtime. This is over.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And when you got, Carter Verhaeghe, God love him, okay?
No.
That man's fixing it. He's got 1 more year in his contract. And that's a whole nother ball of wax because, I don't know how
Verhaeghe, come to Boston. Listen,
because it's not just the 40 goals he scores every year; it's when he scores them.
He's a timely scorer. Like
it's unbelievable, that guy. Anytime you need a goal in overtime or late in the third period, Verhaeghe's going to get that puck and he's going to slide in between the circles, and he's just going to slide like a shark, and he's just going to pick that spot and bing, it's in the net, and it's just incredible to watch the guy be so clutch, and we're just so lucky to have him. And I'm sorry, Tampa. Tampa had our team is like 90% guys. Other teams go, shit, we probably shouldn't have let him go.
Yeah, no.
Forsling was a waiver wire pickup.
I know.
Okay, you picked the dude off the street, right? Reinhart was from Buffalo.
Yeah,
we drafted Barkov, right? Bennett we got from Calgary. Tkachuk we got from Calgary, and I always rub it in because everybody's always so worried about Calgary lost Bennett. Calgary lost Tkachuk. They had Lomberg first, too.
Oh, that's right.
They had Lomberg first, too, right? 90% of the team is loose to Reinen. We got in the Trocheck trade. I could go on ad nauseum. it's incredible. I don't want to leave out Bill Zito. The credit goes to him. I know Maurice and Tkachuk and the trade, but all of that, Bill Zito, this dude, he could walk down, he could go to the mall and find you a top pair of defensemen. I'm convinced.
Absolutely. And I think Verhaeghe would look good in a spoked B, just saying.
Oh, we're good. No, you can't afford him.
No, actually, with all the cap space,
he's got an attitude problem.
No,
He's got a real bad attitude problem.
I'll start a GoFundMe if we need funds here in Boston.
No, man. That's going to be a rough one because you and 31 other teams are like, we'll take him. How much we got to pay? Because it's just like, it's a guarantee.
Yeah.
It's a guarantee. I don't know how many game-winning goals he has, but it's like a guarantee. 10 games a year, he's either going to give you the game-winning goal or tie it late in the third. It's just guaranteed.
Absolutely. It's insane. Well, man,
it is.
I appreciate you coming on here, doing a little bit different for the series prediction. We talk quite a bit, text back and forth.
Yeah. Paul's a good guy. Stop giving him so much grief.
I want to say, if you're watching,
he does a really good Mickey Mouse impression too. I gotta get a Mickey Mouse puppet now.
I'll do a voiceover for you. If you guys,
it's going to be a Franciscan Mexican Mickey Mouse though. We're gonna have to do it like that, okay?
I'll have to work like.
We just mixed that too. We do a voiceover, right? We layer it, and then wait a minute, he sounds Puerto Rican. For those of you wondering, I'm allowed to do this. This is my grandfather's voice. My grandfather was raised in Puerto Rico. I lived his whole life and he raised in Puerto Rico. He moved to New York. He meet a Orthodox Jewish woman. She say, you're not allowed to speak Spanish in the house.
Oh, Jesus.
So my grandfather speaks English at home, and he speaks Spanish everywhere else. And when he died 80 years later, nobody could understand the thing he was saying still.
Damn.
My dad was raised by him, and my grandfather would say something. My dad would say, what? Huh? I don't understand what you're saying. Dude, he was his whole life, he sounded like this. And no, I can't speak Spanish. Because nobody was allowed to learn, to teach.
Yeah.
Because grandma was Orthodox. It's a long story.
That's funny.
It's very painful.
I think definitely check out Flying Fluffy Hockey here on YouTube. The Puerto Rican Mickey Mouse. Definitely check him out. And we appreciate it. Let us know your predictions down below. You just sent me.
Well, you know what the puppet's name is, because I have a puppet. It's my grandfather. You know what his name is?
What's that?
Francisco Hector Villanueva Goldstein.
Jesus, really?
Yes.
Not good for me.
Okay, I'll let you go now. Okay, goodbye.
Appreciate if you drop your predictions down below in the comments section. We'll see you in the next one. You're stupid. Stupid. I'm keeping that in. I don't give a shit.